Welcome to our webinar tonight. We are presenting on the programs that we have in the South Pacific. My name is Jessie. I'm a Global Programs Advisor for Rustic Pathways. I've worked with Rustic for about 10 years now, actually just about 11 years now, and I've run programs in about 10 different countries. I'm happy to answer any and all questions about any of our programs. If we don't get to something on this presentation this evening, feel free to give us a call during office hours. We also have a place on the website where I'll show you can actually schedule a call at your convenience. So you have several resources at your disposal. But we will have some time at the end of this presentation too, so please feel free to use the question and answer box at the end or the bottom of your screen, and we will get to those at the end here. We are also joined this evening by Bethany, and she is a program manager in Fiji. I'd love to have her introduce herself.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Bethany. I am the country manager for Rustic Pathways in Fiji and New Zealand. I've been working for Rustic since 2011, all in the South Pacific, photo guiding, program leading, managing, had a lot of different roles over the last 8 years. I'm really excited to talk to you all about our programs in the South Pacific. So thanks for joining us today.
Awesome, thanks Bethany. Just to go over what you're to expect this presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about Rustic Pathways if you're brand new to our company, give you some background on the countries where we operate. Like I said, we will be focusing on our programs within the South Pacific, so that's Australia, Fiji, and New Zealand. I will cover a little bit about how to enroll when you're ready. Hopefully we've got all of your questions throughout this, or your questions answered throughout this presentation. But again, we will have some time at the end as well, which is number 5 there. So Rustic Pathways is an organization we've been around for about 37 years now, and if you are tuning in today to learn more about our South Pacific programs, you are A, in the right place, and B, you are learning about our oldest programs, because as a company we began in Australia. We quickly branched out to other parts of the South Pacific, which is New Zealand and Fiji, before we spread across the world. Now we're in about 17 to 20 countries, depending on the year. And we have about 100 different programs to choose from. About 75% of them have a service element to them. We find that's really important for our programs, for the communities in which we operate, and for our students to get to experience. And then we also have education programs and adventure programs, and actually a lot of the program and itineraries have a combination thereof. So they're going to have a little bit of adventure, culture, service, education, to give students a really well-rounded experience. But if you are looking for one thing in particular, we do have a wide range of programming depending on the interests of the student. The countries that we're focusing on tonight, as I mentioned, are Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji. And I want to start off with some questions for you, Bethany. First of all, can you give us a little bit of the history? I know I kind of mentioned briefly, but can you give us any more in-depth information about the history of our programs in the South Pacific?
Yeah, so like Jessie said, our programs began in Australia. They were mostly all like ATV 4-wheel drive trips through the Outback. And then we branched into Fiji about 25 years ago. And that's the first country that Rustic ever started doing service programs. So our history in Fiji is really important to the larger story of Rustic in terms of how we got involved in service. So we do primarily service programs in Fiji, and we've been working with the communities that we work in for over 20 years. So we've got really long-standing relationships. And same with New Zealand. We've also been working there for about 20 to 25 years. So a lot of experience in New Zealand. Our programs are mostly focused on adventure. So we've got really great partnerships with vendors, and have just been fortunate to spend such a long amount of time in the area. So long history, potentially a part. Can you still hear me?
Sorry. Yep, I can now. I think you froze. I'm not sure if it's on my end. So
yeah, it started raining here a little bit, so my Wi-Fi might be a little wonky. I'm in Fiji now, and the internet's not always the best. So if I lose you, I'll try and connect again.
Yeah, she is joining us live from Fiji. So and we will get to levels of communication there. I think that's actually kind of a nice little segue. We have parents all the time asking for all of our programs worldwide, but especially when they go farther away from home, how often they're going to be able to contact their students. And just to kind of give you a general overview, we do try to have our students be as disconnected as possible. And Fiji is one place, I'm sure, Bethany, you can speak to, that even when you have an international plan, which we don't necessarily recommend for students, we want students to be able to fully immerse and be present and not on their devices. Even when you think you have a connection, it doesn't always have the best reception. So we do encourage families to kind of utilize, we will actually be sending you emails when the students land, to making sure that they're, you know, that they're there safely with all their luggage, and we'll send an update throughout the trip. But for the students, from the students' perspective, we want them to kind of disconnect, and Fiji is one of those places where there are some remote areas where students are just not going to be able to connect at all. And we don't have Wi-Fi at our base house either. Bethany, if we've got families joining us this evening who have first-time travelers and they've heard all about Fiji and the most amazing things, and maybe they have an interest in marine sciences or things like that, and they're considering Fiji, what, or I should say other countries within the South Pacific, what are some ideal programs for first-time travelers or younger travelers?
Yeah, so in Fiji, we have a couple programs that run from our Eco Lodge base house, and those are definitely the programs I would recommend for first-time travelers. So we have our Sun Sand International Service Program, as well as our Intro to Community Service Program. Intro to Service is 1 week, Sun Sand Service is 2 weeks, and those programs are all stationary at our base house. It's really familiar housing. It's, you know, bunk beds. We have a swimming pool. We have flush toilets and showers. It's a very, very comfortable, familiar place for students who maybe haven't traveled overseas before, but we're still very remote and rural in the neighborhood that we work in. It's a very traditional part of Fiji. So it's a good balance of being in a familiar place, but also getting the chance to really learn about the traditional side of Fiji. We also in Australia and at Peachester, the programs that run from there. We have our Uru in Australia Zoo, which is a really great first-time traveler program, again, at a base house. So it's stationary in terms of where students are sleeping, but still travels around quite a bit in the area. So I definitely would recommend looking for programs that have that base house experience for first-time travelers, for sure.
My mute button keeps getting stuck, so that was me this time. So yeah, I think that's a great segue. We do have base house programs all around the world, and our base houses are always programs that, as Bethany mentioned, will have electricity, running water, seated toilets. They're going to be a little bit more familiar to students, and it's a great place to start. Usually a base house program, which on the website I can show you when we get to that point, there will be a little tag that shows it's a base house program. They also are going to be programs that travel a little bit less. So if they're staying at the base house, they're not going to be staying in several different locations throughout the trip. They're going to sleep in one location primarily, and then venture out from that location to do their service or their adventure activities, but always come back to that same place. So again, it's just kind of a nice start to international travel for younger students. And for those who are looking to go a little bit farther away from home and they want a little bit more of an advanced experience, Bethany, what would you recommend?
Yeah, so in Fiji, we have our Big Fiji Explorer program. That's a 2-week program. It travels around quite a bit. So it's maybe like 2 to 3 nights in one location. It sees a really wide variety of Fiji. So spends a little bit of time at our base house. It goes up to Somosomo to the Sawa Islands, where we have like a base camp. It spends some time up in the interior region of Fiji, which is really remote. Definitely no electricity or connectivity there. Students are camping at a local family farm. So it's like a really different, sort of trying to show you all the different sides of Fiji, and really get students kind of off the map and learning to kind of travel around. And then in Australia, I would definitely recommend either the Epic Outback program or the Island Survival program. Those two are like definitely a little more intense. The Outback program spends majority of its time in the Outback, a lot of camping, driving around and seeing some of the really like highlight spots of the Outback. The Island Survival program spends the majority of its time out on a remote island in Australia. Students are learning all about survival techniques and how to be out in the wilderness. It's a really, really cool program, but definitely for someone that's more experienced and are looking to challenge themselves.
Yeah, that's an awesome program to look to. We have staff that are specifically trained in this kind of outdoor survival skills and medical procedures and instructions. It's a really cool program to check out. As I mentioned before, a lot of our programs have a combination thereof, but if you don't see the perfect combination, all of our programs within a given country, and then even interregionally, so within the South Pacific, begin and end on the same day in the same city within the same country. So they're specifically designed to connect. So one thing to keep in mind is you can't actually connect programs between Australia and Fiji. There is one program that already connects New Zealand to Fiji, and that's called Pacific Adrenaline. You're gonna see some of the highlights and do some of the most amazing activities that are on offer in both those countries. And then you can also combine within a country. So you may want to do a couple weeks of service up in the Highlands, and then a couple weeks of service or adventure seeing some of the islands. What's a good combination, would you say, Bethany?
Oh, great question. I would say like a good combo between going from Australia to Fiji would probably be something like going and doing the surf and service program in Australia, really getting a chance to start working in community service, still experience some really great adventure and surfing in Australia, and then come across to Fiji and maybe do another week program in Fiji, maybe the intro to community service program. We also have a 1-week adventure program called Escape to Fiji. So if you wanted to come over to Fiji and continue to build on your service work, or if you wanted to just have a week of traveling around, Escape is a really great week to sort of tag on to time in Australia as just an additional kind of adventure program. So those would be my sort of recommendations for how to link things together. If you wanted to be really adventurous, you definitely could connect 2-week trips in Australia to 2-week trips in Fiji. It's totally up to you and like how outgoing you want to be. But I also think like the 7 Wonders program in Australia is a 2-week program that definitely does a lot of traveling, sees a lot of highlights, and connecting that to something like Big Fiji, which is another big traveling, that would be like a super exciting, awesome 4 weeks of just really seeing all the highlights in both Australia and in Fiji.
Yeah, lucky kids. I do see we have several people who have joined us since the beginning of this presentation. I just want to remind you that you can use that question and answer section. We will get to some of those questions in the middle of the presentation or at the end. And if you're watching this as a recording, just to keep in mind that if anything is not captured or answered during this presentation, feel free to give us a call. We'll have our phone number at the end, and you'll reach myself or one of my colleagues, and we can help you with any other questions specific to our South Pacific programs or elsewhere. Bethany, what would you say? I mean, I know that I've spoken quite a bit about our programs in the area just because we have such a profound history there. What would you say sets our programs apart in the South Pacific versus others globally?
Yeah, I think what's really amazing about particularly in Fiji, is we have these really amazing connections with local families, and I've been working in the region for such a long time. Students really get the chance to see how people are really living everyday lives, get the opportunity to contribute to really, really meaningful service programs. And I think just because of how long we've been here, like coming to our programs here, you're part of a much larger history within the company. I also think we're going to, places in this area that like not a lot of people are going. It's definitely there's a lot of places here in Fiji in particular where like we're pretty exclusive to Rustic pathways, like some of the destinations and places that you get to go and check out, which I think is really special to coming to this part of the world. And Australia and New Zealand are just such incredibly epic, amazing, beautiful outdoor activities. It's definitely a part of the world that has just such an incredible landscape to offer. Just some of the most incredible sites and environments. You can't find those anywhere else in the world. They're really specific to this area. So if you're really interested in going out and seeing really incredible outdoor landscapes, like the South Pacific is 100% the place to go. It's just a super unique part of the world in terms of all of the amazing environmental aspects it has to offer.
Awesome, thanks, Bethany. I do want to quickly note one more resource that we have, and it's relatively new. We do have a parent group on Facebook. This has been awesome because you can call us and ask us all your questions, but it's also really nice to speak with families who've been through the process and are kind of on the other side of that process. So this is an open group on Facebook. You can go on, you can post the program that your students are doing. You can ask questions from parent alumni. It's been super active and really exciting to kind of see everybody mixing and mingling, getting their questions answered for people who have been through the process already, especially if this is your first time traveling with Rustic Pathways. So definitely log on to Facebook and check that out. I believe you can just find it by Rustic Pathways Parent Group. I think that's the name of it. So check that out. I'm going to quickly talk about the enrollment process. Once you're ready, hopefully, like I said, this will answer all your questions, but When you do get to that point, you log into Rustic Pathways. It's going to be the main page. We have what we'll say, which are super menu up in the top right corner. That's going to open up and it will give you a bunch of different options. Here's where you can search by country. You have the South Pacific here, and you can click in and see each of the programs at a glance. If you're on one of the country pages, it's going to show you them here. You can view them either as thumbnails or as a list if that's easier to kind of help compare the programs. And then here's the list view. It'll give you kind of all the pertinent information right away, the cost, the duration, the age range. You can even click this heart here and favorite it, and then you'll be able to see a list of your favorites. So you can kind of keep track of them because there can be a lot of programs to go through. And then once you're on a program page, if you click into it, you can see there's some tags that kind of help you, again, help compare and contrast. And then once you're there, you'll be able to find the available session dates. It is live, and so you'll be able to see which programs are available, limited, which usually means fewer than half of the spots are left. And then once it gets to about 4 or 5 spots left, it starts to count down. We've got the program profile over here, and then the itinerary, packing lists, and FAQs. Super helpful to kind of, again, get some additional information about what your students are going to be doing on the program. We go back to our menu. I do always like to point out a couple just helpful links over here. There's a program types, which helps people narrow by interest. So students can look for animal conservation or environmental conservation or education type programs. And then you can also learn more about flights and travel. So all of our programs in the South Pacific will depart from, if you're coming from the US, they will depart from Los Angeles. You're only responsible for getting to that hub airport, and then we take care of everything from there. And then we will make that kind of a smooth travel process. And then I always like to point out the student impact and global community impact links. As a parent, I should say as staff, it's something that I'm super proud that Rustic Pathways is putting a lot of time into, is tracking and researching the impact that our programs have both on our students and on our global communities. So check that out if you get some time. And then once you have all that information, you can go ahead and click the enroll button right up here in the corner. It's a pretty straightforward application process, maybe about 6 pages, 1 page for student information, 1 page for parent information, so it goes pretty quickly. And then it takes about 3 to 4 business to process. You'll be paired with one of our fabulous personal travel advisors, or our PTA team, and they're going to walk you through the rest of the process. So they're going to send you your forms and flight information, and any other questions that come up, you'll have someone directly to contact, and you don't have to go through the main line and talk to someone like myself, although you're always welcome to. I do see that we have a question here, so I'm going to go back to our presentation. I do quickly, before we get to questions, want to mention that we do have a promotion running right now. We're featuring 5 or 6 different programs for 5 weeks for $500 off. So if you are looking for kind of a last minute program, this is a great way to save some money. This week is Service Buffs and Changemaker programs. If you are looking for next week, then you can also click the banner at the top of the website. It will take you to the page where you can read the details of the promotion and which programs are being highlighted for next week. So definitely check that out. It's a great deal. And we've got time for questions and answers now. It looks like we're doing well on time. So we've got one who came in here. Let's see. Bethany, can you talk a little bit about the U, Aru, and Australia Zoo program?
Definitely. So a majority of this program is focused on, training, induction, workshops, all kinds of different things for your students to learn about working in the zoo. They take visits to the wildlife hospital. There's trips to Noosa Beach. That's a really incredible beach. Just outside of Brisbane, they go to Noosa Beach. They have a day to go into Brisbane and experience the city. They also get the chance to check out Byron Bay, which is one of another really incredible beach towns, very well known. And there's often humpback whale migrations passing by during this time of year. So that's a really exciting thing. And there's also a few additional activities that are like add-on to the program, but there are options for additional animal encounters and experiences at the zoo. You can go have a movie night, go bowling. All of this stuff is listed, like Jessie sort of showed, on the itinerary, and there's also an FAQ page. If you want to know, like, look at specific lists, kind of itemized, you can check out the itinerary and read through the day-to-day, and the FAQ page will have sort of which activities are included, are additional costs on the program.
Yeah, and I'll just make a quick note. Most of our programs will include all of the activities, accommodation, meals in the cost of the program. There are some exceptions to that, especially some of the larger activities such as scuba diving or skydiving, and that will be listed specifically on the itinerary, on the FAQ section of the program page. So take a look at that. I will also make a note that we have a very special partnership with the zoo in Brisbane, and we're one of the only organizations that does bring student volunteers. It's a really, really cool opportunity for students who are interested in animal conservation or becoming a vet or anything like that. I've had the honor or privilege of going to that zoo, and it's a pretty cool opportunity for students that have that kind of passion. We have a question about gap year programs. I didn't mention in the beginning, we have programs for middle school students, high school students, summer college programs. Then we also have our gap year programs. And we have a brand new partnership with an organization called Verto, who is offering accredited college gap year programs. So there is just a quick distinction to be made that Rustic Pathways gap year programs do not have to be accredited. We have non-accredited, and then our partnership with Verto allows us to offer accredited gap year programs. Where you can find that information is if you click the menu. All of this information here is going to be about our middle school, high school, and college spring break and summer programs. If you're looking for gap year, you're going to click over here, additional information, and you can learn more about our new partnership with Verto and the differentiation between our accredited and non-accredited programs. And then you can also read through the itineraries and see the different options that we offer. Bethany, can you talk a little bit about our South Pacific gap year experience?
So both the Verto program and the separate Rustic Pathways gap year program spend time in all three countries, Fiji, Australia, and New Zealand. So they spend time in each country, and sort of the focus in each country is a little bit different. So in Fiji, we're predominantly looking at service. So it's a solid month of just really visiting all the different locations that we operate in and contributing to service programs in all of those locations. In New Zealand, the focus is really on adrenaline activities. So it visits both the North and the South Island. It hits all the highlights of both those places and is really about, spending a lot of time outdoors, really pushing boundaries. We do things like bungee jumping, zorbing, lots of like really high adrenaline activities. And then in Australia, it's a lot about ocean skills and getting sort of hard certificates. So things like getting scuba certified, learning how to sail, doing a lifeguarding bronze medallion ocean rescue course. So that's kind of the focus in Australia, is much more about hard skills. The typical Rustic semester is about 6 weeks in Fiji, 3 weeks in New Zealand, and about 5 weeks in Australia. The Verto program is a little bit different, but it's pretty similar in terms of the time spent in each of those countries.
Yep. And again, if you have additional questions, you can always send an email to gap@rusticpathways.com or give us a call, whatever's easiest. I did mention that you can schedule a call. I just want to show you where you can find that. If you click the menu, there's going to be this yellow or orange contact us page. If you click into that, there's going to be our mailing address, our email addresses, shipping, whatever, all our different phone numbers, and also this link right here. If you'd like to do a call at your convenience, we'll give you a call. You'll have direct access to our calendar. So lots of to reach out to us. We also have a YouTube channel, we have Instagram feeds that has tons of really fun photos. You can kind of get an idea of your programming. And then of course that parent group on Facebook. So lots of information out there. Hopefully you found this helpful. If I don't see any other questions coming through, again, if you're watching this as a recording, we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Bethany. And one more quick question about Verto. So yes, Verto does offer college credit, and they have partnerships with, I believe, 35 colleges or universities and growing. So definitely something to reach out to us, and we can kind of give you all that additional information. Thank you again for joining us, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Bethany.
Bye, thanks.